Greetings, everyone. This is Rock and Roll Spell Connection with the Weekly Comic Roundup. We're going to kick things off with this week's Marvel books, starting with Hellions, number 5, which is chapter 6 of Ten of Swords. Where we left off in Ten of Swords, so far, 3 of the swords have been gathered. Magic, obviously, with the Soul Sword. Wolverine with a newly forged Muramasa blade, and Storm with Skybreaker from Wakanda. And so the issue begins a couple days ago with the resurrection of Empath, who if you might recall was killed by Grey Crow during the Hellions' first mission to Nebraska. And yeah, he's a prick. They're not doing the big resurrection ceremony where everyone clamors for his resurrection. They're just, in fact, he's going to pretty much be told to go out the back way. And now a portion of the 3/4 of the Quiet Council meet, and Sinister brings up a plan. The heroes of both Krakoa and Arakko travel their globes, collecting swords for the privilege of dancing into a meat grinder. However, what if they denied the Araki that privilege? What if the Quiet Council of the Hellions do what they do best: lie, cheat, and steal until Arakko's swords are theirs? Basically, force a forfeit. And the vote passes. However, there's a second thing brought up. The motion passes, and Exodus states that the Hellions will march into Arakko to end the tournament before it starts, with the fearless Mr. Sinister leading the way. And of course, Sinister's caught by surprise. It's like, what? No, I'm not a battlefield leader. I'm a tell you what to do kind of person while I stay at home and keep my and not battle. And 4 hands. However, after making some comments to Magneto about Polaris and her and Havoc's relationship, Magneto changes his vote, and so yes, Sinister will be leading them. And so, in the Hellion Staging Theater, aka Purgatory, they go over the intel they have on the on what's going on, and Orphanmaker doesn't entirely understand how the resurrection protocols work, so it is explained with Grey Crow finally just explaining to him, Empath died, but then another one woke up. They say it's the same one, and no one can tell the difference, so what does it matter? And when Orphanmaker asks if Empath is still dead, Grey Crow says from where the Empath he shot is standing, yeah, or the empath that's alive is standing. No. It comes down to whose opinion is more important, a living person who can breathe and talk, or a corpse that can't say shit about shit. However, he has also, those are his thoughts on the subject. It's also explained that, however, anyone who dies in Otherworld, they're dead. On Bar Sinister, Sinister has made a clone of himself to send to basically to take his place in the leading the team. And they settle their dispute over rock, paper, scissors. The noble contest. And the winner gets to keep the cape. At the Avalon Gate, the Hellions meet up. And Empath is genuinely curious as to who it was that killed him the last time, because he doesn't remember. However, Quenon suggests to Empath that he remember that Greycrow's warning not to use his powers to manipulate the team. That being the important thing. And as Wildchild chuckles at that, Empath puts two and two together and realizes that Greycrow shot him in the head. And calls him on it, which then Greycrow says, if Empath tries to muck around in Greycrow's head this time, he'll cut Empath in half. Sinister arrives, explaining that he's going to be leading the team. And they pass through the gate to the court of King Jamie Braddock of Avalon, who is trying to is watching as a horse attempts to be tamed in front of him, and it's not going well. Sinister and Jamie discuss things, and eventually Sinister must give up his cape to King Jamie in exchange for a horse. However, as the Hellions make their way through, they are eventually stopped, as apparently the horse was stolen from Saturnine. And so they try to get Empath to, change a few minds, but he's not having it. No. He doesn't care. And it's decided, though, that there is one thing right now that Empath wants, which is for Greycrow to be his pet. And, well, Sinister agrees. So, yes. But Empath does change the mind of Saturnine's people, and not only are Sinister and company allowed to leave, but they're also given horses, except for Greycrow, who will be on foot. And Sinister has a new cape. But Empath then suggests that Greycrow run ahead so that he doesn't hold them up. And Quenon says to Sinister that this is going to end badly, and Sinister adds, "Don't they all?" as the issue ends. Which, seriously, Hellions is slowly becoming one of my favorite X books. I mean, just because it is just batshit nuts. I love it. Anyway, moving on to New Mutants number 13, Ten of Swords, Chapter 7. One of the Part of the prophecy did clearly state that Warlock and Cypher were championing the sword. And so, in this issue, Ileana, one of the Krakoan commanders, does let the commander captain, Cyclops, know what's going on, and that his son is, in fact, one of the swordsmen they need, and so he needs to hurry up and get back. But, Cypher's worried because he's not a warrior. And sure, Warlock will do everything he can to protect him, but he can only do so much, you know? But, Ileana and Cypher, basically Ileana does what she can to teach Cypher how to fight with a sword. We also get a write-up on the Soul Sword. Its weight is negligible to the user. Blade length is variable and adaptive. It is made of manifested life force. Place of origin is Limbo and is made by Ileana Nikolaevna Rasputin. Attributes: magical focus, spellcasting, spell breaking, disruption of ethereal objects and creatures, artifact of regency, teleportation, eldritch gateway, transformation, summoning, sword and armor, healing and regeneration, ward against breaking, incantation of honing. There are expanded files on the Soul Sword armor for include further observations, uses and adaptations about the Soul Sword and its adapted form by user. The forging of the sword. It was created by Ileana Rasputin when trapped in the realm of Limbo by the Hell Duke Belasco. The sword was forged from the energy of her own life force, and the blade is the manifestation of its creator, adapting over time, growing as she did, becoming something sharper and more deadly. But also, see also from Xavier's files on for Ileana's history in Limbo or Hell. Addendum: over the years, several people have wielded the Soul Sword. Its power, potency, and sovereignty of station have transferred with the weapon, but only in the rightful hands of its creator are the sword's full powers unlocked. Another thing that's going on is various people are trying to convince Cypher to find some way. Find someone else find someone to take his place in the contest. Krakoa tries, Xavier tries, Exodus tries, yeah. Personally, I feel like Exodus probably could have maybe telepathically transferred any knowledge that he has of sword fighting to Cypher, but that's me. But in the end, as he is improving, there's at least a degree of hope. But Ileana does tell him, that if Doug raises the sword to fight someone on another world, it'll be the last thing he ever does. And there's not a damn thing he can do to stop it. But he takes his place at the circle. And that is where the issue ends. Which brings us to Cable number 5, which is part 8 of Ten of Swords. Where we left off with Cable in the story. Cable, Cyclops, and Jean Grey had gone to the Peak, formerly the base of the orbital base of operations for Sword, the Sentient World Observation Reconnaissance Directorate. Kind of Shield's off-world sister organization. But they turned on the Peak's power core with Cable's space sword. And so the Summers do basically do a reconnaissance in the aboard the station. And Ileana Magic contacts them again, explaining that, you know, there is a clock on the whole thing with Krakoa and Arako. In one of the science labs, however, Cable and Cyclops find something while Jean discovers one of the surviving crewmen. And he lets Jean see what happened before he steps out the airlock. Jean then contacts Cyclops and Cable, telling them not to open any doors, though she's told that they won't open any more doors. And seeing as how it was Saturnine that kind of sent them there, Cable does ask, you know, if Saturnine knew that's what they'd find. And then within, but what they found is a portal. On the other side of it, faceless death called the Vescora, who stepped through. And so, Jean, Cable, and Cyclops start blasting through the Vescora. And so Cable runs down to the power core and pulls his sword out, basically turning off the station's power. We then get the flight data recorder of the Peak. And then Cable arrives on Krakoa, and we now have half of the Krakoan swordsmen present. And finally, we get a write-up on the Light of Galador. The weight is 999 grams. Blade length is variable from 80 to 100 centimeters. Material, its principal metal is palladium. However, the sword is also forged with an unknown metal likely from Group 6 on the Terran Periodic Table of Elements. Place of origin, unknown, presumed to be from Galador. Maker, unknown. Background, the planet Galador was destroyed not long ago by the ancient race known as the Builders, but there is evidence that some elements of Galadorian civilization survive simply because they are a space-traveling species. The Light of Galador was discovered by Cable on Earth in the paw of a monster who killed a space knight that landed on Earth long ago. Its discovery triggered a host of Galadorian space knights to attack Cable for control of the sword. The knights sought to use the sword to rebirth Galador on Earth. How they intended to do that was not revealed because Cable nuked them before they could execute that plan and endanger the planet. The sword either contains or is a conduit to a massive amount of power. Cable is able to use his telekinetic abilities to skim some of the power from the sword and manifest it in lightning and plasma energy bolts. Not only is the sword a conductor for this energy, but it appears to hold a tremendous amount of information. Multiple zettabytes and possibly even yottabytes of information. Cable has not been able to lay the sword down long enough to determine how much data is present in the sword, nor what the information contains. A weapon of such power should probably not be wielded by an inexperienced warrior, but Cable is unwilling to yield the blade. Imagine calling Cable an inexperienced warrior. But, Magic and Cyclops have a brief telepathic conversation. And she's also asked to keep an eye on Cable. That's where the issue ends. Which brings us to this week's Avengers titles. Starting with Avengers number 37, the finale of Age of Khonshu. Where we left off, the Avengers were facing Khonshu, and seemingly Moon Knight had broken free of Khonshu and had been taken over by the Phoenix Force. So in space, the Starbrand baby is going after Khonshu while Iron Man tries to fight it. However, the Fist of the Phoenix comes along and basically saves Iron Man's ass. Moon Knight tries to reason with the Avengers, but yeah, basically, hey, look, I screwed up. Okay, I was in the wrong, but I'm here. I'm trying to make up for that. Back on Earth in New Thebes City, Khonshu is kind of like, you know what? Screw it. Wipe everything out. Black Panther is facing off against Khonshu and his guards. Robbie shows back up, takes back the Spirit of Vengeance, and attacks Khonshu with it. Then Blade and Cap are dealing with more of Khonshu's minions, and then in an effort to rescue Black Panther, who has just managed to rescue himself. And he then gives Blade and She-Hulk each one of the powered Ankhs that Khonshu had. Blade gets the one that has the Sorcerer Supreme's power. She-Hulk gets the one with the power of the Iron Fist. So we now got the Iron Hulk and Blade Sorcerer Supreme. And I'll be honest, that latter one actually seems kind of like a plausible thing that could happen, at the very least in a what if. And so the Avengers deal with Khonshu's minions. And back in space, Moon Knight begins to is possessed by the Phoenix Force and briefly entertains the notion of just wiping out the planet. However, no, he won't do it. But he reignites the sun as Mjolnir returns to Thor. And Thor decides that as Moon Knight has disrespected the hammer of All-Father Thor, well, it's time for All-Father Thor to disrespect Moon Knight's face. The Avengers place Khonshu under arrest for putting the Earth in jeopardy, and Thor off panel beats the holy hell out of Moon Knight, leaving him in a crater elsewhere. But the Phoenix has also left mark. On the moon, in the summer house, Jean Grey has felt the presence of the Phoenix, as has Wolverine. Jean explains that the Phoenix isn't here for her this time. It's come to search for someone new. There will be a calling. And Jean says she's not going to be there for the calling. But if Wolverine should go, she asks what reasons he is to believe that he could ever stop the Phoenix. And he says he's got 6 reasons in his hands. And that is where the issue ends. Which brings us to Captain America number 24. Where we left off, Selene had been defeated by, largely by Sharon Carter, actually, wearing the Iron Patriot armor. And Sharon had been revitalized by a combination of tech and mysticism, and was feeling much better. So I wanted to be the combination of tech and mysticism. However, as Alexander Lukin was returned from the dead with Selene's help, it would seem as when Alexander Lukin died, he was basically a combination of Lukin and the Red Skull. Well, when he was brought back, the Red Skull came back with him. So we begin with the torture of a man named Tari by the Red Skull. Tari's begging for his life, and Skull explains who he is. That he once superintended camps that made Auschwitz look like an afternoon soiree. The begging of the damned were but so many lullabies to him. And Lucan wakes up on the couch and confesses to his wife that something has happened and it's something terrible. At the Carter estate in Virginia, Tony's working on a new suit of armor for Sharon, but Sharon wants to decide to do some sparring with Cap, and so the two of them spar for a bit. With Cap noting that she's in top shape, and the two of them decide to have another workout. Back in Madripoor, Alexandra Lukin tries to convince her husband that the Red Skull being back isn't necessarily a bad thing. This could be useful for their revenge, for the revenge they both want. And Steve does remark that he's never been to the Carter estate, but he'd really like to go. He'd like to see all these old places in the Carter that Sharon grew up at. But it's explained that what's revitalized Sharon is the power, the souls of Selene's victims, and she explains that she can feel their power coursing through and hear their voices. And so Cap asks what they're saying. Apparently, they're saying, "Avenge us." But The Lucans continue to discuss what's going on with the Red Skull, with the whole thing with Red Skull, and said that yes, they will make use of the Red Skull. And Sharon discusses her future with Steve, as well as a bit of her past too. Kind of adding, she was a Shield agent. She's still in it. She likes the name Agent 13, but Shield is gone, and all that's happening in Washington. She's still an agent, but as far as she's concerned, the only agency left is her and Steve. Then they get word that they found that daughters have discovered where Dryad, Black Widow, Misty Knight, and General Ross are in Madripoor. The signal came back up just outside the MD quarter and started moving. Movements were really erratic, then it went dead again and came back up in Hightown. And it's implied that the four had been captured by the Red Skull. And so, Sharon decides she's going to take her new armor for a spin. And that's where the issue ends. Which brings us to Captain Marvel number 22. Where we left off, you know what? In Captain Marvel, where we left off was her half-sister's now... Carol Danvers was briefly Supreme Accuser. Now her full Kree half-sister is the Supreme Accuser. And we have a brand new story arc. We start off somewhere upstate New York. Carol and Rhodey are walking through the woods in costume. Rhodey comments that Carol takes them to the nicest places, and she explains that she's good at dates. Though Rhodey adds that when he put the armor on, they officially transitioned from date to mission. Though Carol asks if missions have kissing. Of course, they're also not alone on the mission, as Hazmat and Spider-Woman are with them. As they continue to walk through the woods, though, they find a ship crashed in the tree, and it's leaking something. And then Carol and her friends are attacked by some tendrils, and then there's a flash of light, and Carol finds herself on another world. And at the feet of Gary Drew, all grown up. Turns out this is the Earth from Captain Marvel: The End. And yeah, she's... Now, that's where the future from Captain Marvel: The End. Everyone's dead. The events of Captain Marvel: The End have happened. Carol reigniting the sun has definitely helped things. And they're making headway when it comes to reclaiming the surface. But they're also discovering there are other heroes out there. There are other survivors out there. Jessica Drew and Carol have a brief reunion. They do some catching up, and Emma comes along and explains that they have found a survivor called Ove. And she's not 100%, but she now thinks she has a clue as to who Ove is. Magic. And as they're discussing this, they're told they've got to see something. It's Luke Cage, alive and well, delivering a message to for Captain Marvel from Ove. And that is where the issue ends. Which brings us to our final Marvel book of the week. Marvel Zombies Resurrection, number 3. Where we left off in Marvel Zombies Resurrection, the quartet of Spider-Man, Blade, Franklin, and Valeria Richards were making their way towards the Galactus Hive in an attempt to potentially maybe save the infected heroes. We begin discovering just what happened to Franklin on that when the zombified heroes attacked. He was bitten by his mother. Spider-Man managed to save Valeria and Franklin. But, yeah. In the present, Valeria is working on a new weapon while Blade is bonding with Chewie. But Nana brings them to the rehabbed Atlantis colony created by the SHIELD AIM coalition. And they're promptly attacked by zombified Atlanteans. Make their way down, and they see, weird comments being made about, concerning others. Basically concerning, similar to the stuff that they've seen elsewhere, including Black Spring. Apparently which is something Zombie Beast mentioned, called The World Behind Worlds. They do some digging. And they find Logan hidden away. However, his eyes are gone. Well, not so much gone as much as he can't even open it. The eyelids have just become part of his face completely. He can't open his eyes. But he is trying to at least pass on information. But basically explaining that they walked into it, that our heroes have walked into a trap. Then Magic shows up, destroys Nana, and we learn just what Black Spring is. Limbo. And it's where all the infected superheroes are. It's further explained that Logan explains that they're not. They initially started as the Brood, and the Silver Surfer explains that their forebears were the Brood. They found Galactus, who would usher them into their next stage of their evolution. Galactus was not just a vessel for eggs; he was a god, hunger itself made flesh. When the Brood planted their eggs in him, their union gave birth to them, a new life form, the greatest power in the universe, the hunger cosmic, the hunger through which all worlds will be cleansed. They devoured worlds, solar systems, galaxies, but the one they found magic was when they truly ascended. From Limbo, they can invade any world in the multiverse in an instant. And when they've consumed all of the world's metahumans, they will. And Zombie Invisible Woman basically says, yeah, hey, I totally tried to infect Franklin, but for some reason it hasn't taken, and he's, just hasn't aged. Peter and Spider-Man tries to reason with Sue, but she tells him that his family's here too. And Mary Jane arrives saying, "Hey Tiger, you wouldn't believe how much I've missed you." And the issue ends with Mary Jane lunging at Peter. And that's it for now. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and PayPal can be found in the description box down below. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off saying, live long and rock hard.